Bruce Sterling, could hacktivism change the American political system?
I think the Tea Party has been a very good example of some kind of hacktivism, because you got this sort of peer-to-peer style informal arrangements, and especially the fundraising aspects. I mean, those are really changing the political system a lot, because in America it's traditionally about legality and money, sort of the almighty dollar and who do I sue. So you're starting to see hacktivism show up as a way to shortcut the legal system in some ways. And it's also a way now that people can raise a lot of, Kickstarter style funds or put together something like the Koch brothers octopus. And that particular organization of, fundraising, digital distribution really has changed the game a lot in the US.
Is there anything, though, essentially different between the hacktivists of the left and the hacktivists of the right?
Essentially different is a tough thing to say. I mean, it's like saying, is there anything essentially different between Mussolini's fascists and Rosa Luxemburg's street marching guys? And yeah, I think there are probably some essential differences. I mean, they're essential enough that if you put them in the street together, they would know one another instantly and start to quarrel and fight. But there are plenty of examples of guys who are guerrillas or just mercenaries who will hire out themselves to, political campaigns, and they can be very effective, professionals. I mean, they could do all this kind of dirty tricks, destabilizing, psychological operations, fundraising, whatever you want, and they're kind of neither of the right nor the left.
What happens if and when the hacktivists come to power? What would happen if, for example, Sarah Palin won office in the United States?
That would be super interesting. I've been hearing about this for ages. I mean, the idea of electronic democracy in power, or what people call electronic democracy, and these things have never really mapped very well geopolitically. I mean, you might argue that Obama's fundraising machine made him a kind of hacktivist in power, because he was a dark horse candidate who managed to exploit this kind of peer-to-peer networking thing, and started a real grassroots kind of community organizing thing with a lot of money. But once he was in power, he didn't really make any effective use of that to govern. And there is no hacktivist government. I mean, there's hacktivists to destabilize governments. There's hacktivists for political advantage. There's hacktivism for revolution. But, it's like asking, how about the Tahrir Square demonstrators? I mean, who's going to be Minister of Culture? Who's going to run the Archaeological Museum? That's an open question. I mean, I don't know how they get there from here.
Why, though, are we so attracted to hacktivism? What's so attractive in political terms?
Some people find hacktivism attractive. It's a matter of temperament. There are other people who are find it disgusting because they really like an open and transparent model, and they appreciate a notion of fair play. And that's one thing that hacktivism has never had. It's like, oh, we're going to go through the system and do it by the rules in a way that's just and fair. That's just not something you ever do in the hacker mindset. It's like, oh, the rules are a set of obstacles, and they're just treated like lines of code. I'm going to look for exceptions, holes, routes around, and so forth. So there really isn't a hacktivist constitution. There's no, rule of law among hacktivists. There's no official hacktivist bureau that's ever sort of had, say, the relative structure of, say, I don't know, a labor union, a political party. They're I wouldn't say they're anarchist, but they're network society people.
And are you saying that network society people and democracy are incompatible?
Yeah. I don't think they're inherently incompatible, but certainly Republican democracy with its sort of geographical settings and, the power coming from geographical regions and networks don't work. I mean, I think the great lesson of WikiLeaks is that global internet network society and the international order, which is mostly run through diplomacy and kind of people representing states talking to other states, those do not mesh at all well.